I woke up this morning in a motel room that smells like cigarettes and broken promises, and the worst part is knowing that 6 months ago, I was sleeping in silk sheets in a house I owned, next to a husband who swore eternal love to me, and now I have nothing, absolutely nothing, because I threw it all away for a man who promised me the world and delivered me straight to hell. My name is Rebecca. I'm 34 years old, and I need to tell this story before I lose my mind completely, before the weight of shame crushes me entirely. I was a successful real estate agent in Austin, Texas, had a beautiful colonial-style house in the suburbs, drove a brand new BMW, had a husband named Michael who was a financial consultant, and we had what everyone would call a perfect life. Those lives you see on Instagram and think, I want that. But what no one tells you is that perfection is a very fragile mask that can crack at any moment. Michael and I had been married for 8 years, and honestly, our relationship had become a comfortable routine. We were more roommates than lovers, more business partners than soulmates, and I accepted that because I thought that's what adult marriage was. That initial passion that fades and transforms into something stable, predictable, safe. Everything changed on a Tuesday afternoon in March when I went to show a luxury property in the Westlake Hills area. The house was spectacular, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, an infinity pool that seemed to merge with the horizon, and when I arrived, there was already someone there, a man leaning against a black motorcycle, dark hair slightly messy, a leather jacket that looked like it had traveled every road in the country, and when he turned to look at me, I swear my heart stopped for a second. His name was Daniel. He was 38. Said he was looking for a property to settle down after years traveling as a freelance photographer. And there was something in his eyes, an intensity I hadn't seen in years, a way of looking at me that made me feel seen, truly seen, not just as Michael's wife or as the competent realtor, but as Rebecca, as a woman with desires, dreams, and a hunger for life I didn't even know still existed inside me. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more real confessions like this, help this channel grow by clicking the subscribe button. We're working hard to reach 5,000 subscribers, and your support means everything to this community we're building together. That first meeting lasted 2 hours when it should have been 30 minutes. We talked about the house, yes, but we also talked about life, about dreams we had abandoned, about the feeling that time was slipping through our fingers while we lived lives that didn't really belong to us. Daniel told me about sunrises he had photographed in the Grand Canyon, about nights under the stars in Montana, about the freedom of not having a fixed address, and I found myself telling him things I had never told anyone, about how I sometimes felt trapped in my own perfect life, about how I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. When we said goodbye, he held my hand for a second longer than necessary and said, I hope this isn't the last time I see you, Rebecca. And I felt a shiver run down my entire spine, a mixture of excitement and terror, because I already knew at that moment, that this man was going to change my life forever. I should have walked away. I should have kept my professional distance, should have sent another agent to handle his account, but I didn't. Instead, I scheduled another visit 2 days later, and another the following week, and we both knew we weren't really talking about real estate anymore. There was an electricity between us, a magnetic tension that grew with every encounter, every accidentally brushed hand, every look that lasted a second too long. Michael didn't notice anything, or maybe he noticed and didn't care. He was busy with his spreadsheets and investment portfolios, coming home later and later, and when we were together we barely talked. Just two strangers sharing the same space, going through the motions of a marriage that had died long ago, but no one had the courage to bury. The first time Daniel kissed me was in the empty living room of a property in Tarrytown. We had just finished the tour, and he said something about how beautiful the sunset looked through the windows, and when I turned to agree, he was right there, so close I could feel the warmth of his body, and then his lips were on mine, and it was like something inside me exploded, like all the colors that had faded from my life suddenly came back in full intensity. I should have pushed him away, should have said this was wrong, that I was married, but I didn't. Instead, I kissed him back with a desperation I didn't know I was capable of, like a person drowning finally reaching the surface to breathe. Make sure you hit that red subscribe button right now if you want to be part of this journey. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers, and each one of you makes a real difference. Your subscription takes just 1 second, but means the world to me. That kiss opened a door I couldn't close again. We started meeting in secret, at empty properties I was supposed to be showing, at coffee shops on the other side of town where no one knew me, and each time I told myself it would be the last, that I needed to stop before things got out of control. But I couldn't. It was like an addiction. This feeling of being alive again, of feeling desired, of feeling like I mattered to someone. Daniel listened when I talked, really listened, not just waiting for his turn to speak like Michael did. He asked questions about my dreams, about what I really wanted from life, and he looked at me like I was the most fascinating person in the world. And God, I had forgotten what that felt like, to be the center of someone's universe, to feel like I was enough, more than enough. The guilt was eating me alive from the inside, like acid dissolving my insides. Every time I came home to Michael, I felt dirty, felt like my betrayal was written all over my face in letters everyone could read. But Michael didn't see anything, didn't ask questions, and that made me angry too, because part of me wanted him to notice, wanted him to care enough to fight for our marriage, to fight for me. I started picking fights over stupid things, about dishes in the sink, about his mother's invasive comments, about anything really, because I was hoping he would react, would shake me, and demand to know what was going on. But he just retreated further, spent more time at the office, more time on his phone, and the distance between us grew until it became an insurmountable chasm. 2 months after that first kiss, Daniel told me he loved me. We were lying on a blanket under the stars at Mount Bonnell, and he said it so simply, so naturally, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. I love you, Rebecca. I love everything about you. And I know this is complicated. I know you have a life, a husband, responsibilities. But I can't keep pretending this is just something casual, because it's not for me. And I should have been scared, should have realized that things were spiraling out of control. But instead I felt my heart explode with joy, because someone loved me, really loved me, not the version of me I pretended to be, but the real me, messy and confused and terrified. The next 3 weeks were a blur of stolen moments and terrible decisions. Daniel found a house he wanted to buy, said he was ready to settle down in Austin, and I knew he was doing it for me, for us, and the weight of that responsibility was crushing. I started fantasizing about leaving Michael, about starting a new life with Daniel, about being free from the prison of perfection I had built around myself. I opened a separate bank account, started transferring small amounts of money that Michael wouldn't notice, making plans for an escape I wasn't sure I had the courage to execute. Your support is crucial for this channel. If you're invested in this story and want to know how it ends, subscribe now and help us reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers. Just click that subscribe button. It's quick and free, and it helps more than you can imagine. Everything came crashing down on a Friday night in June. Michael came home early, which was unusual, and I was on the phone with Daniel, talking in whispers in our bedroom, and I didn't hear Michael come up the stairs, didn't hear him stop outside the door, and when I finally turned around, he was standing there, and the look on his face. God, it was like watching someone die in front of you, all the color draining, all the life leaving his eyes. He didn't yell, didn't scream, he just asked very quietly, "How long?" And I couldn't lie anymore, couldn't pretend, so I told him everything about Daniel, about the meetings, about how I felt dead inside our marriage, and Daniel made me feel alive again. And with each word I spoke, I watched 8 years of marriage crumble to dust. Michael didn't fight for me. That's what hurt the most, what I didn't expect. He just nodded, said, "Okay," and walked out. I heard him making phone calls downstairs, heard his calm, controlled voice, and I knew he was already moving on, already planning his next steps, because that's who Michael was. Always practical, always rational, even in the face of betrayal. I called Daniel, told him what happened, and he said, "Come to me, leave now, we'll figure everything out together." And I wanted to. God, I wanted to so badly, but I couldn't move, couldn't make my legs work, because reality was starting to sink in, the enormity of what I had done, what I was about to lose. Michael filed for divorce the following Monday. His lawyer was efficient and ruthless, and because we lived in Texas and I was the one who had the affair, because there were community property laws but also fault considerations, everything became a nightmare. The house we bought together, I had to sell it. Michael kept most of the proceeds. My car, technically under a loan we both signed, he claimed it because he could prove he made most of the payments. My business suffered because word spread fast in real estate circles that I was having an affair with a client, and suddenly the calls stopped coming, the referrals dried up, and my reputation, which I had spent years building, was destroyed in a matter of weeks. Daniel was supportive at first, told me we would get through it together, that material things didn't matter as long as we had each other. I moved in with him into a modest apartment in South Congress because the luxury house he was planning to buy fell through when his financing didn't come through. Or so he said. I tried to rebuild my life, tried to start over, but everything was falling apart. My friends, most of whom were married couples we socialized with, took Michael's side, stopped returning my calls, and suddenly I was alone, completely alone except for Daniel. Please, if you're following this journey with me, show your support by subscribing to the channel. We're so close to reaching 5,000 subscribers, and your subscription is the push we need to keep growing this community where we share real stories without filters or pretense. But then 3 months after I left everything for him, I started noticing small things that didn't add up. Daniel was constantly on his phone, texting someone, and when I asked who, he would get defensive, say it was work stuff, photography clients, but he was barely working, barely leaving the apartment. Money was tight. I was working part-time at a retail store because I couldn't find real estate work, paying for most of our expenses, and Daniel kept saying his photography projects were about to pay off, that we just needed to be patient. One night, when he was in the shower, his phone buzzed with a message, and I know I shouldn't have looked. No, it was wrong, but I did. And the message was from a woman named Ashley, and it said, "Miss you, baby. When are you coming back to Denver?" My blood ran cold. I scrolled through the messages, and there were dozens of them, going back months, overlapping with when Daniel and I had started seeing each other. And the messages were intimate, loving. The kind of messages you send to someone you're in a relationship with. There were photos, too. Photos of Daniel with this woman, recent photos. Photos from the past few weeks when he said he was out meeting clients. I confronted him when he got out of the shower, shaking, holding his phone like evidence in a trial. And he tried to lie at first, said Ashley was just a friend. But I kept pushing, kept demanding the truth. And finally he admitted it. Admitted that he had a girlfriend in Denver, that he had been going back and forth, that he never actually intended to settle down in Austin permanently. I felt like I was going to throw up. "So what am I?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "What have I been to you this whole time?" And Daniel had the audacity to look uncomfortable, to actually look like he felt bad. And he said, "Rebecca, you're amazing, you really are. And what we had was real, but come on, you were married, you had a life. I never thought you would actually leave everything. I thought this was just, an affair. Something exciting, not something that would become this complicated." I left that night with nothing but a suitcase and my broken heart. I couldn't go back to Michael, couldn't face him after destroying our marriage for a man who turned out to be just as much of a lie as everything else. I called my sister in Portland, but she was furious with me for what I had done to Michael, whom she always loved, and she said she needed time before she could talk to me. My parents, conservative and religious, had already expressed their deep disappointment, and I couldn't bear to hear their judgment again. So I ended up here, in this cheap motel in San Antonio, working 2 part-time jobs just to afford the weekly rate, with no car, no house, no husband, no friends, nothing to show for my 34 years of life except a cautionary tale about how quickly you can lose everything. If this story is resonating with you, if you want to continue following these real-life confessions, please subscribe to the channel. Your subscription is free, takes just 1 second, and helps us tremendously in our mission to reach 5,000 subscribers. Click that subscribe button and be part of this growing community. The worst part isn't even the material losses, though those are crushing enough. The worst part is the shame, the constant suffocating shame that follows me everywhere. The shame of knowing I destroyed a marriage, hurt a man who never did anything wrong except maybe love me in a way that felt too safe, too comfortable. The shame of being so stupid, so naive, so desperate for excitement that I fell for the oldest trick in the book, fell for a man who told me exactly what I wanted to hear. The shame of facing myself in the mirror every morning and seeing a woman I don't respect, a woman who made choices so catastrophically bad that she lost everything, including her own sense of self. I keep replaying everything in my mind, wondering when exactly I could have stopped, when I could have made a different choice. Was it that first meeting with Daniel when I felt that initial attraction? Should I have walked away then? Was it the first kiss, when I should have said no, should have remembered my vows, my commitment? Was it later, when I had already crossed so many lines that crossing one more didn't seem to matter? I torture myself with these questions every night, lying awake in this uncomfortable bed, listening to the sound of traffic outside and the couple fighting in the next room. I've thought about reaching out to Michael, about apologizing, about trying to explain that I know what I did was unforgivable, but that I'm truly, deeply sorry. But what would be the point? What could I possibly say that would make any difference? Sorry I threw away 8 years of marriage for a man who was playing me the whole time? Sorry I humiliated you and destroyed the life we built together? Words seem so inadequate, so meaningless in the face of such devastation. I saw on social media, through a mutual acquaintance's post, that Michael is dating someone new, a woman who looks kind and genuine, and they look happy together. And I felt this strange mixture of relief and crushing sadness, because he deserves to be happy, deserves someone better than me. But it also means that chapter of my life is truly closed, truly over, with no possibility of ever going back. Sometimes I wonder about the version of Rebecca that existed before all of this, the woman who had her life together, who was successful and respected and had a future. Where did she go? When did she disappear? Or was she always just a facade, a performance I was putting on? And the real me is this mess, this woman who makes terrible decisions and destroys everything she touches. I don't know anymore. I don't know who I am or what I want or how to begin rebuilding from this place of absolute rock bottom. Your engagement with this channel means everything. If you're still listening, if you're invested in this story and want to hear more honest confessions like this, subscribe now. We're working hard to build a community of 5,000 strong, and we can't do it without you. Hit that subscribe button and join us. There are moments, fleeting moments, when I feel a tiny spark of something that might be hope. Like yesterday, when I helped an elderly woman at the store where I work carry her bags to her car, and she thanked me so warmly, told me I had a kind face, and for just a second, I felt like maybe I wasn't completely irredeemable. Maybe there was still something good in me worth saving. Or last week, when I finally worked up the courage to call a therapist, made an appointment I can barely afford, because I know I can't keep going like this, can't keep drowning in shame and regret without eventually going under completely. I've started journaling, writing down my thoughts and feelings, trying to make sense of this disaster. I write about the warning signs I ignored, about the rationalizations I made, about how I convinced myself that my happiness was more important than my commitments, about how I confused excitement and passion with love, about how I was running away from my problems instead of facing them. I write about Michael, about the good times we had, about how I took him for granted, about how I wish I had tried harder to fix our marriage instead of looking for an escape. I write about Daniel, about trying to separate the fantasy from the reality, about accepting that he never was who I thought he was, that I projected all my desires and dreams onto a man who was essentially a stranger. Some nights I dream about alternate realities, about what my life would be like if I had made different choices. In one version, I never went to show that property in Westlake Hills, never met Daniel, and Michael and I worked on our marriage, went to counseling, rediscovered each other, and found a deeper, more mature love. In another version, I was honest with Michael about my unhappiness early on. We separated amicably. I rebuilt my life with integrity, met someone new organically, and started over with a clean conscience. But then I wake up in this motel room, and the reality hits me like a physical blow, and I have to face another day of consequences, another day of living with what I've done. The financial stress is constant and overwhelming. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes not even that. I've sold everything of value I still had, jewelry, designer clothes, my laptop, just to make rent. I've applied for dozens of jobs, anything that pays more than minimum wage. But my resume has a gap that's hard to explain. And when potential employers Google my name, some of the ugly details of my divorce come up, and suddenly I never hear back. I've thought about leaving Texas, starting completely fresh somewhere no one knows me, but I don't have the money to move, don't have the resources to start over somewhere new. Make sure to subscribe if you're finding value in these authentic stories. We share real experiences from real people, and your subscription helps us continue this work. We're on a journey to 5,000 subscribers, and every single one counts. Click that subscribe button and be part of something meaningful. My family situation remains complicated. My sister finally called me last month, said she was ready to talk, but the conversation was difficult, full of long silences and things we both wanted to say but couldn't. She's trying to forgive me, but I can hear the disappointment in her voice, and that might be worse than anger. My parents sent me a brief email saying they're praying for me, which is their way of saying they love me but don't know how to deal with what I've done. I'm grateful for even these small gestures, these tiny threads connecting me to the life I used to have. I ran into someone I used to know from the real estate world last week, a woman I used to compete with for listing. I was at my retail job, wearing a name tag and a uniform shirt, and I saw the recognition in her eyes, followed immediately by pity, and I wanted to disappear, wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. But she was kind, surprisingly kind, didn't mention anything about what happened, just asked how I was doing with genuine concern in her voice. And when I gave her some vague answer, she said, "Life has a way of humbling all of us eventually, Rebecca. You're going to be okay." And I almost burst into tears right there in the middle of the store. I think about forgiveness a lot, about whether I deserve it, about how to even begin forgiving myself. In therapy, my counselor talks about self-compassion, about treating myself with the same kindness I would show a friend who made mistakes, but that feels impossible right now. How do I show compassion to someone who hurt so many people, who was so selfish and short-sighted? How do I forgive myself for throwing away a good life because I was bored, because I wanted excitement, because I was chasing some fantasy of passion and romance that turned out to be nothing but smoke and mirrors? Daniel has tried to contact me a few times, texts saying he's sorry, that he never meant to hurt me, that things got complicated, and each time I see his name on my phone, I feel sick. I blocked him finally, because what is there left to say? He played a role in my destruction, yes, but I'm the one who made the choices. I'm the one who had the commitments and broke them. I'm the one who has to live with the consequences. He gets to go back to Denver, back to Ashley, back to his life as if I was just a brief detour, an interesting chapter while I'm here, living in the wreckage of everything I destroyed. If you've made it this far in this story, thank you for listening, for not judging, for being part of this community where we share our truths without pretense. Please subscribe to help us reach 5,000 subscribers. Your support makes these stories possible and helps others feel less alone in their struggles. There are questions I ask myself constantly, questions that keep me awake at night, that haunt my days. Did I ever really love Daniel, or was I in love with the idea of him, with the escape he represented, with the way he made me feel about myself? Did I ever really love Michael, or did I just love the security he provided, the comfortable life we had together? Am I capable of real love? Or am I just someone who uses people to fill whatever void I'm feeling at the moment? These questions terrify me because I don't know the answers, and not knowing makes me question everything about myself, about my capacity for genuine connection and commitment. I've thought about what I would say to the old Rebecca, the woman I was a year ago, if I could go back in time. Would she listen? Would I be able to convince her that the excitement she's craving isn't worth the price she'll pay? Or was this destruction inevitable, something I needed to go through to finally see myself clearly, to finally understand that running away from problems doesn't solve them, it only creates new ones? I don't know. I honestly don't know if I would do things differently if I could go back, knowing what I know now, and that uncertainty scares me more than anything. The loneliness is suffocating sometimes. I go days without having a real conversation with anyone, without genuine human connection. The people I work with are nice enough, but they're not friends, they're just co-workers making small talk between customers. I've tried going to support groups, divorced people's meetups, things like that. But I feel like a fraud there too, because everyone else seems to be the victim of their divorces, and I'm the villain of mine. I sit there, listening to stories of betrayal and hurt, and I think I'm the person who caused that pain for someone else. I'm the cheater, the home wrecker of my own home, and the shame becomes unbearable. But here's what I'm learning, slowly, painfully, in this cramped motel room with its flickering lights and thin walls. I'm learning that rock bottom is a real place, and it's exactly as terrible as everyone says it is, but it's also weirdly clarifying. When you've lost everything, when you have nothing left to lose, there's a strange kind of freedom in that. Not the exciting, passionate freedom I thought I was chasing with Daniel, but a different kind, a harder kind. The freedom that comes from having to completely rebuild yourself from scratch, from having to figure out who you really are without all the external markers of identity you relied on. I'm learning that consequences are real, that actions have weight, that you can't just follow your feelings without thinking about the impact on others and expect to escape unscathed. I'm learning that marriage isn't just about passion and excitement, that it's about commitment and partnership and showing up even when it's boring, even when it's hard, and that I failed at that, fundamentally failed, and have to own that failure completely. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you one more time to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We're building something special here, a place for real stories and real struggles, and we need 5,000 subscribers to keep growing. Your subscription is quick, free, and incredibly meaningful to this community we're creating together. I'm learning that forgiveness is a process, not an event, and that it might take years before I can look at myself without feeling crushing shame, and that's okay. That's part of the journey. I'm learning that sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the most important lessons, and that maybe, just maybe, there's a version of me on the other side of this destruction who is wiser, more compassionate, more genuine than the woman I was before. But I'm also learning that I might never fully recover from this, that some choices leave permanent scars, that there are some things you can't undo, some relationships you can't repair, some lives you can't get back. I'm learning to live with that uncertainty, with the possibility that this is it, That this motel room and these part-time jobs and this crushing loneliness might be my reality for a very long time, maybe forever. So here I am, telling you my story, this ugly, messy, cautionary tale of a woman who had everything and threw it all away for a fantasy that disappeared like smoke the moment she tried to hold it. I'm telling you this not because I want sympathy, not because I think I deserve forgiveness, but because maybe, just maybe, someone out there is standing where I was a year ago, feeling dead in their marriage, attracted to someone new, rationalizing why it's okay to cross that line, and maybe my story will make them pause, will make them think twice, will save them from making the same devastating mistakes I made. Or maybe someone out there is where I am now, living with the consequences of their choices, drowning in shame and regret, feeling like they've destroyed their life beyond repair. And maybe my story will help them feel a little less alone, will show them that they're not the only one who made terrible decisions, who fell for the wrong person, who lost everything that mattered. I don't have a neat ending for this story. No redemption arc tied up with a bow. No clear lesson or happy resolution. I'm still in the middle of it, still struggling, still trying to figure out how to build a life from these ruins. Some days I think I'll be okay eventually, that time will heal these wounds, that I'll find a way to forgive myself and move forward. Other days I'm not sure I'll ever recover, ever be whole again, ever be able to trust myself or anyone else. The truth is, I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'll ever have a real career again, if I'll ever have another relationship, if I'll ever regain my family's trust, if I'll ever stop hating myself for what I did. I don't know if the lessons I'm learning are worth the price I paid, if this transformation I'm supposedly going through is real, or just another story I'm telling myself to make the pain bearable. What I do know is this. I lost my home, my car, my dignity, my marriage, my reputation, my financial security, and my self-respect. And I did it all for a man who was never who he said he was, for a fantasy that was doomed from the start. And now I have to live with that, have to wake up every morning and face that reality, have to find a way to keep going, even when everything feels hopeless. So I'm asking you, really asking you, what would you do in my place? How would you rebuild from here? How would you forgive yourself for something this big, this destructive? How would you find the strength to keep going when you've lost everything, when you're the architect of your own destruction? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because I genuinely don't know the answers. And maybe together we can figure out how to climb out of this hole I've dug for myself. And if you've stuck with me through this entire painful story, please, please subscribe to the channel. Share your own experiences, your own struggles, your own moments of losing everything. Let's build a community where we can be honest about our failures and our pain, where we don't have to pretend to have it all together. We're working toward 5,000 subscribers, and every single subscription helps us grow this space where real stories matter. Click that subscribe button now, and thank you for listening to my truth, as ugly and messy as it is.